Anger and protest at Ras Jdir on the Libyan border with Tunisia. More than a week after they have crossed the border fleeing the fighting in Libya, these African workers from Ghana are feeling desperate, and they say they've been let down by their country.
We want to go. We want to go. We need the help.
It's very clear these Ghanaians are not angry with the Tunisian government. They said they love the Tunisian government. They said they love Tunisia, but they are angry with their own government, they say, because it has not come to help them.
They also complain of what they think is discrimination against them in the camp.
Everywhere we go, Bangladesh. Bangladesh. We don't know where to eat. When we join a queue, tabu, Bangladesh. No Ghana, no Nigeria. You don't understand. We don't understand the reason why we are black or what.
But local Tunisian workers and volunteers are denying the charge.
Guys, you are in home here. You are home right now here.
Yes.
So we're gonna help you to go back. We will help you to go back.
Ghanaian migrants have described some of the horrors they went through before getting out of Libya.
You see, they take my money. They not stick on my back. Who want to go Ghana? Who want to go? Ghana government to come and take us from here.
One of their wounded still cannot walk.
No problem. Keep quiet.
Another is writhing from cramps and fever inside the tent. It's obvious that the situation of these African workers was hazardous. The rebels accused them of serving as mercenaries for the Libyan regime, and at the same time, they say they have been beaten and looted by Gaddafi's security forces. After all those hardships, they now have only one demand.
When are you taking us? When are you taking us back to Ghana?
Mohammed Val, AlJazeera, Ras Jdir on the Libyan-Tunisian border.
Other news now, and protesters in Egypt say they've been attacked by security services and armed men in plain clothes. The demonstrators had been trying to storm a government building looking for secret documents linked to Hosni Mubarak's regime. Ayman Mohideen with more now from Cairo.
Outside the towering Ministry of Interior, they gathered, demanding access. But on Sunday evening, as the crowds grew, so too did the tension. The Egyptian military, under strict orders to prevent crowds from storming the sprawling security complex, fired warning shots into the air. The situation further complicated with the arrival of armed men, who the protesters described as former regime loyalists that tried to attack the crowds. Earlier on Sunday, the prosecutor general had ordered all state security buildings sealed. That decision came after protesters stormed the operational headquarters of the state security in another Cairo suburb. There they found documents, police records, underground rooms, and even a passageway that led to a secret living quarter they claimed was used by the powerful Minister of Interior, now standing trial. They also found bags of shredded documents. With the recent departure of the Mubarak-appointed Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq, protesters feared that state security officials would attempt to destroy all evidence that would implicate them. After protesters stormed this massive state security compound behind me, Egypt's new prime minister asked anyone with incriminating evidence or documents to hand them over to the military so that they can be used in the prosecution of former regime officials. Documents like these, obtained by Isra Abdel Fattah, who was detained by state security twice for her political activism, show how state security was spying on her, even hacking into her email accounts to find out which organizations she was involved in and who she was in regular contact with.
These records show they were extremely paranoid from us. Every piece of information that for us seemed insignificant would be significant for them. They were convinced that there must have been some international organization behind my activities.
That sense of paranoia led state security to act with impunity for years, many say. State security was often accused of corruption, extortion, and torturing activists and citizens alike. Hussam Hamallawi was tortured while in the custody of state security.
State security has to be dissolved completely, not restructured or frozen, but to be dissolved. Secondly, every single officer and corporal and agent and informer in that agency must be put on trial.
Today, on the walls of the abandoned complex that came to symbolize the oppression Egyptians endured under the previous regime, a simple message left by the protesters. This is the fate of the oppressors. Ayman Mohideen, AlJazeera, Nasser City.
In Côte d'Ivoire, gangs of youths backed by the police have ransacked at least 10 homes belonging to opposition politicians. UN peacekeepers are unable to control the chaos in Abidjan as roadblocks have been set up by government supporters to stop them. In the west of the country, rebels claim they've captured the town of Tolipo from government forces, but military officials deny that. The country's been tense since the disputed election results of last year. Bangladesh and the Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus will be in court to hear if his sacking from the bank he founded is in fact legal. The country's central bank dismissed Yunus last week, saying he was working in violation of the country's retirement laws. But his lawyers argue Grameen Bank has a special status, therefore the rules don't apply. Yunus, who's 70, has been an outspoken government critic. In 2007, he did attempt to form his own political party. Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai has rejected a US apology for the mistaken killing of 9 Afghan boys in a NATO airstrike last week. It comes as hundreds of protesters hit the streets of Kabul on Saturday to demonstrate against the US military operations in the country. A statement from Karzai's office said the president had told General David Petraeus, the top commander of coalition forces in Afghanistan, that civilian deaths in his country are, quote, no longer acceptable. Meanwhile, we've got US Defense Secretary Robert Gates, who's arrived in Afghanistan. His visit comes as US troops prepare to begin their phased withdrawal. That's due for July, but this month Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai will announce a timetable of his own for the gradual handover of security responsibility from NATO-led forces to Afghans. Truck drivers in Gaza are on an indefinite strike. They're protesting against Israel's permanent closure of the commercial Kani crossing in the north of the Gaza Strip. It leaves the Karam Abu Salam crossing in the south as the only way for goods to actually get in and out of Gaza. Nicole Johnston with more now from Rafah.
Here at Rafah, hundreds of Gaza's truck drivers are on strike. They've blocked the entrance to the Karam Abu Salam crossing, and that means at the moment no supplies can get in and out of Gaza. Now they're striking because Israel has closed the Kani crossing, and the drivers are saying that they won't work until it reopens. Now, Kani used to be the main export and import point for Gaza, but when Hamas took over, Israel closed it, except for gravel and grain, and now Israel has shut it down completely.
Kani is a well-prepared crossing for security and infrastructure. It's cheaper. It's closer to the city, to the factories, to the warehouses, and to the wholesalers. In addition, from the Israeli seaport to the crossing, it's only 35 to 40 kilometres. But Karam Abu Salam is 3 times further than Kani, and its capacity is very limited. It's also more expensive.
Now, Israel says that it's closed the Kani crossing for security reasons, and that it's expanding the capacity of the Karam Abu Salam crossing. But for people in Gaza, that's not enough, and businessmen and drivers here, they don't believe Israel. They say that they had a perfectly good crossing in the first place that never should have been closed, and that this is in fact another attempt by Israel to tighten the siege. Nicole Johnston, AlJazeera, Rafah.
We're looking at France now, where an opinion poll in La Parisienne newspaper has suggested the leader of the far